Prairie Justice, The Hanging of Mike Hack by Wayne Sumner. In March of this year, I made a short video about Mike Hack, a condemned murderer hanged at Regina at 4:45 a.m. on the morning of Friday, January the 18th, 1929. His crime, the murder of George Edey, E-D-E-Y, near Duff, Saskatchewan, on May the 2nd, 1928. Mike Hack is buried in an unmarked grave in the Regina Cemetery, but not in Potter's Field. While making my video on the case, I learned that a book had been written about it, Prairie Justice, The Hanging of Mike Hack by Wayne Sumner, a retired philosophy professor from the University of Toronto. The book wasn't available to me at that time, but I was able to read it after the video was released. The author has a personal connection to the case, as Duff, Saskatchewan, was his father's hometown, and his great-grandfather, John C. Matthews, a justice of the peace, conducted the preliminary inquiry that determined there was sufficient evidence to charge Hack with murder. Matthews was also the coroner. The author's grandfather, Frank Sumner, was a member of the coroner's jury. Sumner's father had moved away from Duff prior to the murder and eventually became an insurance executive in Toronto. When in retirement, he was asked to investigate the case by one of Hack's relatives. He compiled a dossier on the murder and its aftermath, which Wayne Sumner inherited. Hence this book. Prairie Justice provides detailed background on the scene of the crime, the arrest and trial, and the aftermath, the author illustrating his points with references to Canadian legal and criminal history, which I found interesting. His conclusion? Hack was guilty. And I agree. But Sumner also believes that, while guilty, Hack was the victim of a miscarriage of justice due to the poor defense provided by his lawyer, Percy Anderson of Regina. Specifically, he feels Anderson failed to present evidence of both Hack's supposedly low intelligence and his episodes of strange behavior, evidence which might have led to his client being declared either unfit to stand trial or to his acquittal on the grounds of insanity. Speaking for myself, I don't believe such evidence would have changed the jury's verdict. Stupidity and poor impulse control is not insanity, and without being flippant, stupidity and poor impulse control figures strongly in the cases of most of the condemned men I have covered on this channel. Sumner, quoting a member of Hack's family, has a chapter entitled, "He was deaf, he was German, and a little simple," which I think is probably a good description of Mike Hack. One area where Wayne Sumner and I would agree is that Mike Hack should not have hanged. He was stone deaf, having lost his hearing at age 21 after suffering the mumps. But because he had lost his hearing as an adult, Hack, who only had a grade 2 education, could talk and was literate in both English and German. But in spite of his literacy and the considerable attempts to address his disability at trial, I have serious qualms about executing, not about convicting, but about executing a man who cannot hear the evidence against him. No matter how hard the court tried, there is no way Hack could understand the proceedings the same as a person who could hear everything and answer questions directly. But what do you think, dear listeners? Wayne Sumner presents his case in meticulous detail, too detailed for me to address in this short video. So I encourage you to read the book and form your own conclusions. While not totally agreeing with the author, I personally enjoyed the many references to Canadian legal history, including accounts of other murder cases. So, if you've read Prairie Justice, please share your thoughts and opinions in the comments. If you haven't read the book and live in Canada, you should be able to find it at your local library, especially out west, like in Regina. The footage you see is me walking in the old Regina Cemetery in the area where, according to local historian Kenton DeYoung, Mike Hack is buried in a communal grave with 2 innocent babes. If you enjoyed today's video, please drop a like, comment, and consider subscribing to The Gallows, where we explore Canadian murder cases which ended on the scaffold. And remember, if you're born to hang, you'll never be shot. Cheers.